Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adam Davis, and welcome to episode 131 of the 11FS FinTech Insider Breakfast Show. As you know, in this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday, straight to your homes, here live on today YouTube. And before we get into the show, I have two important announcements to make. First of all, we've had a lot of fun doing these shows over the last 6 months, and it's been amazing that you guys have been joining us for those. But this is the last week of the breakfast show, just simply because the world is changing. For next week, we're going to bring you two new formats. So on Tuesdays at 3:30 BST, we're going to take a deep dive into the most interesting news stories of the week. And on Thursdays at 3:30 BST, we're going to bring you an in-depth interview, personal interview with an industry leader. That's in addition, obviously, to the normal FinTech Insider podcast. Both those new shows are going to go live on LinkedIn. If you need those details again, I might say them at the end of the show, or just follow us on social and you'll definitely hear the message. We're also super proud to announce that 11FS have made it onto the LinkedIn top startups list for a third year in a row, which is really cool. So obviously we're gushing. Bianca will put a link in the comments section so you can all go and check out everyone else that made the list, and there's loads of really cool fintechs that have made the top 10 list as well, so check that out. Today we're joined by Liam Gray. Hi Liam, fintech lead at TechNation, Natasha Foster, who's the COO at Paid, and Roger Vincent, who's the managing director at Trade Ledger. And on today's show, if you haven't been reading the news, then let me enlighten you. We'll hear about the TechNation FinTech 3.0 cohort, and Natasha and Roger were part of the 2.0 cohort. So we'll be hearing a lot about sort of what happened before and then what the plans are for this one as well. So that was an extraordinary long monologue. Guys, how are you doing?
Good.
Excited to be on.
Yeah, it's good. I got through it. Okay, cool. Look, if you've got any questions or anything else, just leave them in the comments sidebar on YouTube, and we'll get to them later on in the show. Let's start a little bit about talking about your companies respectively. So, Liam, do you want to talk a little bit about TechNation and a little bit of the background as to what this cohort is specifically?
Yeah, sure. So TechNation is an organization that's been around for about 10-ish years now. The FinTech program is one of many of the growth programs that we have available. It's one of the few that focus on a very specific industry vertical, obviously financial services, and it's kicked off back in 2018 and it's backed by Her Majesty's Treasury. So we're on our third iteration of the program now. We're joined by Roger and Natasha, who were on the second iteration of the program, and they'll tell you more about their experience shortly. But yeah, so we've just launched the newest cohort, so super excited about that.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Natasha, do you want to give a little bit of a background to Paid, and then also, I guess, a little bit of background to your to how you came into the 2.0 cohort, to the last incarnation?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm co-founder and CEO at Paid. We're on a mission to create equal opportunity for businesses of all sizes all over the world. And the idea there is to give big companies agility and access to innovation, and smaller companies economic strength and certainty of cash flow. And we do that today by transforming procure to pay processes for big businesses to enable them to work with their small suppliers, and offering faster payment to the small suppliers for their completed work. And we just heard really good things about TechNation. So when we saw that they were advertising for FinTech 2.0, we were like, it's a no-brainer for us to apply and hope we got on. So when we did, we were really excited to take part.
Cool. And Roger, do you want to give a little bit of a background to Trade Ledger?
Yeah, no problem. So thank you for having me on the show. Trade Ledger, much like Natasha and Paid, kind of functions in the commercial lending space. We're an enterprise software company. We don't do any sort of financial services ourselves. So we're purely B2B. We supply our technology to banks, to alternative lenders, to, I suppose, support them with new product innovation. Data-driven lending, as we would call it. So unlocking data within the supply chain to actually power new forms of data-driven commercial lending products. I suppose we like to put it, just putting a bit more fintech into banking and alternative finance providers. And much like Natasha, I suppose we had some really good feedback from our sort of wider ecosystem of fintechs that had actually taken part in the first program and actually had joined the scale-up programs and subsequent programs. So yeah, we were just enthused to take part, see what it was about, and and I think probably Natasha will join me, and we're more enthused now to join the later programs and to stay part of it. So yeah, it was a great experience.
That's cool. We'll come on to that in a sec. Liam, do you want to do a background to the Tech Nation, the 3.0, and I guess kind of not just how it's made up and sort of the structure of it, but also the cohort itself this year is relatively diverse compared to maybe what it has been in the past. And do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so the structure of the program, it's focused on really providing as many insights as possible to the founders and the exec teams, but also facilitating the peer-to-peer networking and sort of wider networking for those organizations as well. The main difference between this and last year is that we've got a wider geographic spread. We had 60% of the companies based in London last year, and it sort of flipped this year. So we've got 60% based outside. Also, we have a sort of wider sort of range of subsectors we're looking at now. There's quite a few more subsectors within the FinTech program. And also, it's worth mentioning that we've actually expanded the cohort from 22 to 31 this year. So it's getting slightly bigger. We're reaching more and more companies, and that's super exciting. The other big thing is the fact that we've moved to a completely remote program, and this will be our first time doing that. So it's got its benefits and its disadvantages. There's going to be less in-person events, obviously, and less sort of face-to-face interaction. But we've got an opportunity to actually reach people even further and wider, and even more people within the cohort teams as well.
Just before I go to the others to talk about last year's, it is interesting because FinTech investment this year is still ravenous. It's still of significant volume. I think it's about 14 billion or 15 billion in the UK alone, leading Europe. Did you see, in terms of the volume of applicants for this cohort, did you see a rise, or have you seen like an additional appetite? I know you've sort of expanded the sectors, but from a demand perspective, what did you see when you opened up the applications?
So yeah, fortunately, we had even more demand this year. Last year, we had around 120 applications. This year, we had more than 140 applications. And I think it's important to mention not just the quantity, but the quality were really strong as well. We really struggled to pick the 31 companies, and we had even more to pick from. So it was a good problem for us to have, and it just shows the strength of the ecosystem.
Cool. Natasha, I'll start with you. In terms of your experience last year, from before the cohort to when it finished, what did, or I suppose, how have you guys grown is probably the best say, and what's your, I suppose, marker of success of what it's meant to Paid and to you guys?
Absolutely. So we had such a fantastic experience on the program overall. I think there were a real range of companies on the program. So people who were perhaps a bit earlier stage like us, and then those that were later stage. So for us, we felt we really benefited from the interactive sessions and the learning sessions. So specifically the sales session, we loved that one. It was really useful. It helped us refine our pricing model. And also the board session, we felt we really benefited from that. Because we were just starting to think about a more formalized board. We've just raised seed funding, so just recently. So it helped us to think about what it means to have institutional representatives on board. So it really prepared us basically for our seed round, which we did after the program, and what we needed to get in place for that, and what we should be thinking about post seed as well. So it was super useful.
And then, Roger, from your perspective, in terms of what that parameter of success looks like for you, was there something you wanted to get out of the cohort, or was it kind of you went in just like with an open mind in terms of how your business would be impacted, and then again, like insights, your favorite bit, if you like, what really stuck out for you, and what do you want to continue the engagement with Tech Nation going forward?
So I suppose, to be completely honest, I think the kind of fickle world of FinTech, you try and involve yourself in as many programs, hackathons, as you can, right? And I suppose you get a lot of them thrown at you by banks, by industry, maybe trade associations, etc. I think Tech Nation definitely stood out. It was like actually the vetting process, the quality of the FinTechs that were selected, was just exceptional. And when you got into the room with everyone, you kind of recognise, as Natasha said, there's a whole range of different people in there. Although we were kind of on that FinTech cohort, there was startups in there with kind of 5 employees. There was scale-ups in there with kind of 60 employees. So the range of kind of experience that you got and the learnings that you took from that were just exceptional. So you're learning from the people that have made these mistakes before, but actually the sessions that you're having with other major kind of scale-up companies like Tide, like ClearScore, you know, coming in and kind of speaking about their experience, I think everyone walked away with something. For me, it was about how do you manage people and how do you manage talent. That was a session that we had, I think, with ClearScore. They'd grown globally. They'd established many different offices. It was about how they manage talent, how they grow talent. It was something that I walked away and I said to our head of people at the time, I said, you've got to learn from this. Can we sit down? Can we spend time with you? And that's what we walked away with. But I think everyone had that same experience. And I think as we grow, I mean, we're a company, we've doubled during lockdown. We've doubled the size of the company during lockdown. And it's great to see kind of success from the cohort of FinTechs. But also you want to kind of migrate up to the 3.0 program and the upscale programs, etc., the rising star programs. I think the learnings will just be more and more and more. So I don't think there's anyone in that program that would say they wouldn't want to take part in the other programs. And I suppose I'll get it in early that, Liam, you will expect an application for the upscale program. It's not right, but
I mean, I wasn't going to mention, but actually, Liam, it's a good question, which is what happens when you do graduate from 2.0, 3.0? You know, what are the other programs that are available to FinTechs to, I suppose, go from startup to scale up and beyond? And how does that engagement continue?
No, yeah, it's a good question. And there's 2 parts of that, really. So there's the FinTech side of it. So now we're super fortunate to have over 70 companies that are either on a cohort or alumni. And these are super strong companies that we're planning to make sure that they have a strong bond together. So 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. And then outside of that, you've also got all of these other programs. So you've got Upscale, which is just a stage beyond where we are on the FinTech program. So looking at Series A and to Series B. And then obviously you've got our top program, which is the Future 50 program. So it's kind of our dream to have the sector programs feed into those programs. And I hope that we see quite a few companies from the FinTech program move on to Future 50 in particular.
Cool. I've got a question around, there's a question that's come in, which I'll ask in a sec, but there's sort of a preceding one, which is around what's the criteria, I guess, to evaluate whether a company should or shouldn't be on a cohort. And then Mariette Ferreira, thanks very much for watching. She's put in a question, which is, did the pandemic change the kind of companies that you looked for and the criteria that you, selection criteria? So I just wondered your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so with respect to the first question, the general criteria. So there's criteria to actually be considered as a company that can make it onto the program. So there's that sort of first stage gate. And that's you need to be at C or Series A stage. You need to have a financial services product or service that is really tech driven. And then if you're bootstrapped, you need to be generating some sort of revenue. So in order to be considered, that's where it needs to be. But to actually make it onto the program, it's a lot more comparative, because you've got different companies that are doing different incredible things. And that's where the comparison comes in. And it's looking at the sort of wide range of companies that have applied to the program. So it's not a case of if you hit these marks, you're definitely getting on. It's really about looking at what sort of applications come in.
Cool. Okay. And in terms of the pandemic, has that? I mean, obviously you're going completely remote, which is which we can come on to in a sec. But in terms of the selection criteria, did that affect it at all?
To be honest, I'd say it meant that we were slightly more lenient in the sort of cutoff to be considered. We realized that for a lot of the bootstrap companies in particular that were generating great revenues before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, that's going to materially impact it. And also with respect to the development of companies in general and the growth, for a lot of them, it was we're doing great up until March, and then it sort of fell off a cliff. So we took that into consideration, and we didn't say, oh, why did you not grow in the last 2 months?
Right. Would have been slightly harsh, but yeah. Natasha and Roger, did you guys base your? I'm just trying to think of, I suppose, the logistics. Did you guys base your companies out of TechNation, or how did pre-pandemic? How did it work in terms of? Was it co-location? Was it kind of you went in, dipped in and out physically? I mean, how did that work?
So the sessions were in different geographic locations. So we just attended as appropriate. Like different members of the team got to attend the different sessions. I went to all of the London ones because I'm the only one based in London. But myself and my co-founder pretty much split it. He went to the more northern ones and the tech ones because he's more tech focused. But it was like remote sessions with the guys at the start of the pandemic that worked really well as well, like having a big Zoom quiz and so on. So I'm sure it'll work really well doing it remotely.
Zoom quizzes, no. And Roger, I suppose from your perspective, like if you were going to give any advice to any of the 2.0 cohorts, or the ones that are just coming on, what would those pieces of what would those nuggets be, I guess?
I suppose my biggest piece of advice is make sure that you get as many of the team involved as possible. As Natasha said, I think the assumption was that someone applies for it and you go along and you're the founder or you're the CEO or whatever. Actually, the reality was it was split into so many different sessions that you could actually invite the whole team. So there were CFO sessions, and they were networking between CFOs of large companies. There were talent sessions, etc. And I think get the team involved is one of the biggest pieces of advice. And when you get there, I was absolutely astounded about how many people actually switched off. And like you don't expect to walk into a room full of companies like ours and people to switch off. But people close their laptops, people put their phone down, and they actually genuinely listen. I think that was really refreshing, and certainly not something that I expected. So that's another piece of advice. Make sure that you listen and engage with the sessions, and don't just sit there on Slack as you go through a workshop.
We would totally agree with that. You've got to participate. You get out what you put in, and we really enjoyed like all the interaction with the other companies. So and you learn so much from each other, and make lasting relationships. So it's definitely worth making the effort to participate and get involved with everyone.
Cool. And then Liam, from your perspective, I think one of the interesting things that I should shout out, because we've got obviously InsurTech Insider as a podcast, is that I think 20% of this cohort is InsurTechs, and you've also got PropTechs, and you've also got sort of obviously traditional, I suppose, more FS based services. That diversity that goes into all the different companies, I suppose that gives you just a fantastic base to learn from one another. But has there been was there, again, within the selection criteria, was there a thought to say, actually, you know what, we're going to opening up a little bit more wider to InsurTechs, or we're going to look at PropTech as a sector, and what I guess influenced that? Yeah,
so it's a good question, and let me sort of like go back to the very beginning of the program. So back in 2018, when we launched the FinTech 1.0 program, it was only B2B companies, and it was just companies that were focused on certain elements of financial services. We then opened that up to B2B and B2C companies in the second iteration of the program, and we were focusing on companies that were sitting in certain areas of financial services, and that wasn't really including insurance at the time. Then we realized that insurance industry is growing massively, not just within the UK, but globally. And in the UK, we've got such a strong insurance sector, and so many strong InsurTechs that are at the right stage to be on a program like this, and they just weren't benefiting from it, and they didn't have the opportunity. And as you can see in the fact that 20% of the companies are InsurTechs, there's a great pool of InsurTechs at that right stage right now, and quite a few of them made it onto the program. If I'm honest, I didn't expect that many to make it on the program first time round, but that just shows the strength of the sector, and I reckon that's going to grow even further.
And the other thing I wanted to say, and in fact, Natasha, you're probably a good person to direct this to. I think it's 60% now of the companies are based outside of London, which is really cool. So all across the UK, and I suppose that geographical spread is that, do you think, as a consequence of the pandemic, so everyone's just at home and everyone's sort of moved out of London, or is that just a consequence that I'm hoping the latter rather than the former? Is that or is it a consequence, I hope, of more investment investment being made, I guess, around the country and more investment into fintech or just tech in general, and tech hubs in other areas of the UK?
Yeah, I think I think well, we were around before the pandemic, so obviously we think it's the latter. But I think that it's really about there being more awareness for regional companies. So people, institutions like Tech Nation, they actually get out there and advertise to regional companies, so they know there's things like this available to them as resources and as communities to join. Because I think that's more of the issue than they're not, funding not being available. It's more that those regional companies don't necessarily always have the network or know about what resources and potential communities and programs are available for them to join. So one of the reasons I guess we knew about Tech Nation is we were one of the we were on the Techstars FinTech program, so we had more London exposure. And then we found out about Tech Nation through spending more time around London. But Tech Nation are also really good at advertising regionally. We had a really good proportion, I think, Liam, of regional companies on FinTech 2.0. So
yeah.
Cool. Liam, I don't know whether you, I don't know about going through all 31, but if you want to give a shout out to any of the companies that have made the cohort, I don't know how you're going to pick.
No way.
Liam, it's in the show notes, so I got to ask it. It's a test of your memory. No.
Oh my goodness. I'm just going to say that we've got a great mix of companies, and I'm super excited to work with them. I said this in the 2.0 program, and I'll say it again now. I'm extremely privileged to sit in the same room as so many incredible entrepreneurs, and they're doing such great things, and I learned so much being there. So yeah. I'm grateful for that, but also I know that they're going to get so much from this program, and excited about going into this new world where it's going to be slightly more, a lot more digital as well.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much. Look, we're gonna wrap up because we are coming to the top of the hour. But I'll go through the screen and just a little bit more about how people can find out more about you and your company. So Natasha, we'll start with yourself.
Yep. So it's www.paid.co.uk, or you can email us on hello@paid.co.uk, or on Twitter paidco.uk.
Wicked. Roger, yourself.
Yeah, so contact me on LinkedIn or email Roger at tradeledger.io, or visit the website tradeledger.io. I think I'm the designated chatbot, so you'll come straight through to me.
Awesome. Yeah, drive Roger mad is the morning message. Liam, what about yourself, and actually for Tech Nation in general?
Yeah, sure. So you can reach us either on the website at technation.io, or you can reach me personally at Liam Gray at technation.io, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining this morning. We've come to the top of the hour, and that's it for today. Tomorrow is the very last episode of The Breakfast Show, so make sure you don't miss it. It's going to be a bit of an assortment of great minds, so we'll just see how that goes. So join us tomorrow morning for more detail. Thanks very much, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.